The Galactic Council had seen many species rise to prominence across the stars, but none quite like humanity. When the humans first arrived at the Xanthari diplomatic station orbiting the violet giant of Kepler 442, the assembled delegates had prepared for the worst. Humans were predators, after all, apex hunters from a death world called Earth with forward-facing eyes and an unsettling tendency to bare their teeth when expressing joy. Katniss Everdeen represented humanity's interest in the Outer Rim territories, a position that required equal parts diplomacy and courage. She stood barely 5.5 feet tall, with dark hair braided practically down her back and eyes that held the calm alertness of someone who had survived far worse than boardroom politics. The other species found her unnerving, though they couldn't quite articulate why. Neo Anderson served as her security detail, though served was perhaps too formal a word. The two humans had developed the easy camaraderie that came from surviving multiple first contact scenarios gone wrong. Neo was taller with a wiry frame that belied his enhanced reflexes and an expression of perpetual mild amusement at the galaxy's absurdities. The Xanthari were massive creatures, standing nearly 12 feet tall with crystalline exoskeletons that refracted light into rainbow patterns. They were prey species, herbivores who had evolved on a world where everything wanted to eat them. Their civilization had risen through collective cooperation and an almost pathological avoidance of conflict. The sight of two human predators on their station had sent waves of anxiety through their ranks. "Ambassador Everdeen," the Xanthari High Counselor chittered through his translator, his carapace darkening to deep purple, a sign of distress. "We have concerns about the Predator Accords you wish to negotiate." Katniss smiled, careful not to show too many teeth. She had learned that lesson early. "I understand your hesitation, Counselor, but humans have been part of the galactic community for 3 cycles now. We've proven we can coexist peacefully." "Peacefully?" A delegate from the Quilarian Collective, a species of floating gas bags, quivered indignantly. "Your species hunts for sport. You consume the flesh of other creatures. You have entire cultural traditions built around simulated combat." "We also write poetry," Neo interjected from his position by the door, "and we're excellent at cooperative problem-solving. Those predator instincts you fear, they make us pretty good at protection details too." Before the Quilarian could respond, a commotion erupted from the Xanthari nursery adjacent to the council chamber. A young Xanthari cub, no more than 2 cycles old, had somehow escaped its caregivers and bounded into the diplomatic hall. It was small, barely 3 feet tall, with a carapace that still held the soft, opalescent sheen of youth. The adult Xanthari immediately began their alarm calls, a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. The cub, startled by the noise, did what all young prey animals do when frightened. It ran. Straight toward Katniss. Every non-human in the room froze. A predator and a prey cub, closing distance. This was the nightmare scenario that had kept countless species from ever trusting humanity. Katniss didn't freeze. She dropped smoothly to one knee, making herself smaller, less threatening. Her badge, the formal diplomatic insignia that marked her authority, glinted on her chest. The cub, in its panicked state, noticed the shiny object and did what curious young creatures across the galaxy tend to do. It snatched the badge right off her uniform. The Xanthari caregivers began rushing forward, chittering apologies and distress calls, but Katniss held up one hand, stopping them. "Hey there, little one," she said softly, her voice carrying none of the formal diplomatic tone she'd used moments before. "That's pretty shiny, isn't it?" The cub, clutching the badge in its small manipulator appendages, tilted its head. Then, with the playfulness common to young creatures everywhere, it tucked the badge beneath its body, sitting on it like a treasure. Katniss laughed. Not the careful, controlled laugh of a diplomat, but the genuine, delighted sound of someone who recognized play when she saw it. The sound rippled through the chamber, and every adult alien tensed, expecting violence. "Oh, you want to play keep away?" Katniss grinned. She reached out slowly, telegraphing her movements. "I think I know where it is." She gently lifted the cub's body. It was surprisingly light, chitinous, and hollow-boned, and retrieved her badge from beneath its small paw. The cub chittered in surprise, then in what could only be described as delight. Katniss held the badge up, letting it catch the light. "See? Found it." Then she did something that would be replayed on galactic news feeds for the next standard year. She winked at the cub. The young Xanthari, understanding the gesture as the playful acknowledgement it was, reached out with its tiny paws and touched Katniss's face, tracing the lines of her smile. It chittered again, a sound its caretakers recognized as contentment. When Katniss finally stood, cradling the cub briefly before handing it to the relieved caretakers, the entire council chamber was silent. She reattached her badge to her uniform and turned back to the High Counselor as if nothing unusual had happened. "You were saying, Counselor? About humans and the Predator Accords?" The Zenthari leader's carapace had shifted from purple to a soft blue, surprise mixed with something that might have been respect. That is, our cub seemed quite comfortable with you, Ambassador." "Children usually are," Neo observed from the doorway.
"Funny thing about being predators, we're also really good at protecting the vulnerable."
"It's kind of our thing," Katniss nodded. "Every species brings something to the galactic community. Humans bring adaptability, problem-solving, and yes, predator instincts. But those same instincts make us fiercely protective of those we consider part of our pack, and we have a very large pack." The High Counselor was quiet for a long moment. Then his translator crackled to life. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge. If you would be willing to continue negotiations, Ambassador Everdeen, we would be honored to discuss the Predator Accords further." As the council session resumed, this time with considerably less tension, the young Zenthari cub watched from the doorway with its caretakers. It chittered once more, waving a small paw at the strange predator who had played with it, who had understood play, who had winked. Katniss caught the gesture and smiled, offering a small wave back. In that moment, the galactic community learned something new about humans. They were predators. Yes, but they were also capable of gentleness, of play, of recognizing innocence and responding with kindness rather than instinct. That was the day the Predator Accords were signed. That was the day the galaxy stopped fearing humanity and started understanding them. And it all began with a stolen badge, a laugh, and a wink.